These are the headlines we're following at this hour. South Korea raises the country's heatwave alert to the highest serious level for the first time in 4 years. What you need to know to stay cool and safe. Meanwhile, signs of a cool down continue on the inflation front, with consumer prices seeing the smallest on-year gains in over 2 years at 2.3%, but crop prices remain a concern amid the heat. 43,000 young scouts have gathered at South Korea's West Coast Saemangeum area for their World Jamboree, the biggest international youth cultural exchange festival. Good afternoon. South Korea continues to grapple with a brutal heatwave, prompting authorities to raise the alert level to the highest for the first time in 4 years. This comes as the country is seeing surging cases of heat-related illnesses, especially among the elderly. Our issue has the latest and what you need to know to stay safe.
South Korea's Ministry of the Interior and Safety activated the first stage operation of its Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure headquarters on Tuesday evening. It also raised its heat wave alert level to serious, the highest level above attention, caution, and alert for the first time since 2019. The level serious is issued when the highest feels-like temperature of the day is forecast to reach 35 degrees Celsius for 3 days or more in over 40% of nationwide weather report districts, or when the temperature is expected to hit 38 degrees Celsius in 10% of the weather districts. Previously, the level alert had been issued on July 1st. The Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters has ordered related ministries and regional administrations to take special care of those who work outdoors, such as farmers or construction workers, as well as the elderly. The headquarters also asked them to come up with measures to prevent damage to fishing and farming industries and manage public infrastructure like roads and railroads. Meanwhile, the nation is experiencing what's called tropical nights, with sweltering heat making it difficult to sleep. Tropical nights are when the lowest temperature overnight is 25 degrees Celsius or above. In the midst of these heat waves without a respite, experts explain that it's important to minimize heat exposure.
It's not just about the absolute temperature, but also about how long for and where you're exposed to the heat. Even at the same temperature, the risk of heat stroke or heat exhaustion cranks up if you're exposed to the heat for a long time or working in a confined, humid environment.
To prevent heat-related illnesses, it's necessary to stay hydrated and be aware of one's own body condition. Dizziness, nausea, and headaches are common symptoms of heat-related illnesses. Move to a cool place if you feel unwell and don't hesitate to reach out for help or see a doctor. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
In the meantime, a devastating typhoon has slammed northern China, killing at least 20 people. There's another typhoon, Kanun, also ripping through the Japanese island of Okinawa. Its path is largely uncertain, with South Korea also staying on alert. Our Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
Typhoon Doksuri, meaning eagle in Korean, which slammed northern China from Sunday night, has left at least 20 dead and 33 missing in the capital Beijing and the nearby Hebei province. Authorities are calling it one of the strongest storms to hit the region in over a decade, as homes and roads were heavily flooded due to the massive rainfall the typhoon brought. In response, Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for an all-out search and rescue operation aimed at people missing or trapped in floods, while demanding greater efforts to minimize casualties. The Chinese Finance Ministry announced it would allocate $15 million for rescue work in the Beijing-Tianjin-Hebei region. Over in Japan, Typhoon Kanun brought torrential rains and strong wind to the island of Okinawa on Tuesday, which is also home to a number of U.S. military bases. Meteorologists in the U.S. have labeled Typhoon Kanun a Category 4 storm on the 5-category wind scale, while Japanese authorities issued a stern warning to the 760,000 residents in Okinawa to evacuate their homes immediately. However, experts are having a hard time trying to pinpoint where Kanun will hit next.
Because the subtropical high to the north of Kanong is not stable, and there is a tropical convection to the east that is quite active, which will have a certain impact on the path of Kanong in the later stages.
While the typhoon is expected to hit Shanghai, storm path models released by South Korea, the US, and experts in Europe all show different predictions. Weather authorities here in South Korea say if Khanun does pass by the Korean peninsula, it should arrive this coming weekend at the earliest or next week at the latest. With Khanun's powerful winds, authorities are keeping a close eye on the storm while making all necessary preparations in case the storm does hit South Korea. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, signs of a cool down continue on the inflation front, with consumer prices seeing the smallest on-year gains in over 2 years at 2.3%. But crop prices remain a concern amid the heat. Our Moon Hae-ryun has more.
Consumer prices in South Korea continue to slow in July despite rising vegetable prices following the heavy rain and flooding. Data from Statistics Korea show that the Consumer Price Index, a key gauge of inflation, rose by 2.3% compared to the same month last year. This is the lowest figure seen in over 2 years and marks the 6th month in a row that the on-year rise has fallen.
The key factor behind slowing inflation is a drop in oil prices, which have dropped on year at the largest rate since data was first compiled in 1985.
But given a resurgence in oil prices amid rising summer demand and tightening global supply, this effect may wear off soon, on top of more expensive vegetables. Compared to the previous month, vegetable prices jumped by over 7%. This is largely due to price increases for vegetable crops affected by the heavy rainfall that hit the country last month. According to the Korea Agro-Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation, the prices of lettuce and spinach more than doubled within the space of a month. The price of cucumbers also rose by 17% and spring onions by over 23%. With these vegetables among the 144 products measured in the Consumer Price Index for daily necessities, the related index rose by 1.6% on year. And the extreme heat which has gripped the country for the past week or so could continue to affect consumer prices. Owing to the volatility of food prices, Statistics Korea takes an average between 3 values taken throughout the month. As a result, the effects of weather conditions such as rainfall or a heat wave is not greatly reflected in the Consumer Price Index.
While the effects of the monsoon were partially reflected in July's data and may continue to affect the index in August, vegetation also has a short growth period, so it's difficult for us to predict what will happen in August.
Core inflation, as measured by the OECD excluding volatile categories such as food and energy, was up by 3.3% in July, the lowest growth since April last year. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
South Korea last year saw the 3rd biggest drop in economic output per person among major countries. According to a Korean lawmakers' analysis of data from OECD and World Bank, South Korea's GDP per capita, a core indicator of economic performance in 2022, dropped 8.2% to $32,142. The only major countries to see larger declines were Japan and Sweden. The Bank of Korea largely attributed the drop to the Korean won weakening by 12.9% against the US dollar. South Korea is ranked at 23rd in terms of GDP per capita among the 47 countries in the data, unchanged from the year before. The global credit ratings agency Fitch Ratings has downgraded its U.S. debt rating from AAA to AA+, citing governance concerns after the recent debt ceiling crisis. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen called the downgrade arbitrary. Ian Jim reports.
Fitch Ratings, one of the 3 major independent agencies that assess creditworthiness, on Tuesday downgraded the U.S.'s long-term foreign currency issuer default rating from the top rating of AAA to AA+. The agency stated that the downgrade reflects expected fiscal deterioration over the next 3 years, a high and growing general government debt burden, and the erosion of governance. Fitch said it had noted a steady deterioration in governance over the last 20 years, flagging the possibility of a downgrade and placing the country's rating on negative watch on May 24th, at the time citing political brinksmanship over the debt ceiling. In June, the government succeeded in lifting the debt ceiling to $31.4 trillion, but only after a drawn-out political battle which threatened to push the country into default. The risk, along with the 2021 January 6th insurrection, were major contributing factors to the agency's latest downgrade. Fitch also noted that a combination of tightening credit conditions, weakening business investment, and a slowdown in consumption could lead the economy into a mild recession in the fourth quarter of 2023 and first quarter of next year. Meanwhile, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen disagreed with Fitch's downgrade, saying in a statement that the change was arbitrary and based on outdated data. She added that the Treasury Secretaries remain the world's preeminent safe and liquid asset, and the American economy is fundamentally strong. The White House had a similar view, saying it strongly disagreed with the decision. The first and only other time that the U.S. has faced the credit rating downgrade was in 2011, when S&P lowered its rating from the outstanding AAA to an excellent AA+. It was following a similar debt ceiling crisis that resulted in protracted negotiations. Ian Jin, Arirang News.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump has been indicted yet again, this time for allegedly trying to overturn the results of the 2020 election. The indictment was filed on Tuesday U.S. time by a federal grand jury saying Trump was spreading lies about the fraud in the 2020 vote. The four latest charges include conspiracy to defraud the United States and conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. This follows an investigation by Special Counsel Jack Smith into events surrounding the January 6th Capitol riot 2 years ago, when pro-Trump supporters marched on Congress to protest President Biden's election win. Rejecting the latest charges as another fake indictment, Trump is scheduled to appear at the Washington, D.C. federal courthouse on Thursday local time. The former president is seeking to run for the White House again in 2024. Tens of thousands of young scouts have gathered at South Korea's West Coast Saemangeum area for this year's World Jamboree. The event will see a range of cultural exchange programs until next week, with a grand opening ceremony set for tonight. Our Choi Soo-hyun is there.
The World Scout Jamboree, the biggest camping festival for young people, began on Tuesday at Saemangeum, Busan-gun County in South Korea's Jeollabuk-do province. Around 43,000 young people from 158 countries will come together, fostering friendships that bridge racial, religious, and cultural divides. This event returns to Korea after 32 years after the country hosted the 1991 edition in Gangwon-do province. But after 6 years of preparation, the venue finally opened with great anticipation.
The World Scout Federation highly praised the successful hosting of the 25th World Jamboree as planned. Additionally, this Saemangeum World Jamboree offers a variety of exciting and memorable programs for young people so that they will cherish their time in South Korea.
Participants from around the world arrived on Tuesday before the official program activities started on Wednesday. They spent the day preparing, including handling the registration process and setting up their tents from morning to late evening. Scouts worldwide are greeted at this welcome center and then moved to their assigned accommodation after registration. Despite the long journey to Korea and the scorching heat that left many exhausted, the excitement and joy of meeting new friends, not to mention the anticipation of the 12-day event, were clear to see.
Well, I mostly expect to meet new people, meet internationally new people, get a new network.
Get a lot of new friends from all around the world and experience lots of new stuff here.
Due to Korea's intense summer monsoon flooding the Saemangeum reclamation site until just before the opening, the Scouts managed to create their accommodation by laying plastic pallets and pitching their tents on top. However, despite the extreme weather conditions, the Scouts cherished their camping experience and found joy in preparing for the upcoming programs. The World Scout Federation highlighted how Scout activities help young people overcome difficulties, develop social skills, and be physically healthy. Despite post-pandemic challenges, the Scouts' enthusiasm for the Jamboree in Korea remains undiminished. The opening ceremony will take place at 8 p.m. Korea time on Wednesday. 최수형, Arirang News, Saemangeum.
South Korea's defense export procedures to the EU and NATO members are expected to be quicker and easier. This is because Germany is simplifying its defense export regulations, which affect Korean weapon systems made with German defense parts. Germany's Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action said on Wednesday that a new procedure will be put in place from September to the EU, NATO, and major non-NATO allies, including Australia, Japan, and South Korea. The new procedure means Germany will eliminate its regulation of approving cases individually. It currently takes nearly 3 months for Korea to get approval for imports of German defense parts and exports of weapon systems equipped with these parts. South Korean automakers Hyundai and Kia saw their U.S. sales increase by double-digit figures in July. According to the company's figures, Hyundai sales were up 14% on-year, whereas Kia's were up 13%. For Kia, that is the biggest record for a month of July and marks the 12th straight month that it has broken the record for the respective month. Eco-friendly cars in particular boosted sales. South Korea aims to become one of the top 4 content giants in the world by 2027. After placing itself on top for dramas and pop music, the next ambition is Webtoon industry. Shin Se-byuk reports.
The K-content industry has emerged as a major export powerhouse in South Korea, with Korean dramas and movies finding great success abroad. The country is now seeking to become one of the world's top 4 content giants by 2027. As part of these efforts, the government is now shifting its focus to the potential of webtoons. Data from the Korea Creative Content Agency shows the value of K-content exports reached over $13.3 billion in 2022. Cartoons accounted for only 0.8% of that amount. However, the cartoon sector saw remarkable growth with a 30% on-year increase, making it one of the top 3 fastest-growing segments in the content industry. An expert says what makes webtoons particularly significant is their use as source material for various screen adaptations.
In the past, novels and comics served as the foundation for a variety of cultural content. Nowadays, webtoons and web novels, which captivate the younger generation, have taken on the role. And now, these are being exported worldwide.
To foster the webtoon industry further, the Seoul metropolitan government has launched educational initiatives to nurture webtoon creators and producers.
The core strength of K-content lies in the creativity of its creators. Nurturing that creativity requires providing them with the right talents and a platform to unleash their creative potential.
Through these courses, students have the opportunity to develop their competitiveness as webtoon creators.
I received valuable feedback and advice from many mentors, which helped me objectively assess my skills.
The classes taught me how to direct webtoons, understand illustrations better, and create trendier comics.
South Korea's well-established web environment also allows it to create more engaging content than other countries.
South Korea's highly digitalized environment further facilitates collaboration between creators.
However, he also expressed concerns about potential diplomatic issues that may arise when exporting webtoons or K-content, as some content could touch on sensitive topics. To that end, the expert said the government has to take on a role beyond just providing financial support, acting as a mediator to address these issues. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Niger, hundreds of Europeans are being evacuated following a coup. France has sent 3 planes to an airport in the capital Niamey and is offering to help evacuate other European nationals. Germany has encouraged its citizens to take up the offer, and Italy is also organizing an evacuation flight. The evacuations come amid an increasing anti-French sentiment, with coup supporters having gathered around the French embassy for days. The coup leaders have also accused France of plotting a military intervention to reinstate ousted Niger President Mohamed Bazoum. Meanwhile, military juntas in Burkina Faso and Mali have pledged support for the coup leaders. They said that any forcible attempt to reinstate Bazoum would be viewed as a declaration of war. In Paris, armed robbers made off with jewelry valued at up to $15 million. The robbers raided Swiss luxury brand store Piaget on Tuesday local time in an upscale area of the city. According to French media, the suspects, 2 men and a woman, are still at large. They allegedly pulled a gun on staff inside the store, forcing them to hand over jewelry from locked display cases and a safe before leaving. The raid comes a year after armed robbers hit a Chanel watch and jewelry store in the area, while nearby Bulgari and Charmet stores have also been robbed in the past. In Myanmar, deposed leader Aung San Suu Kyi has received a partial pardon from the military junta that will cut 6 years off her 33-year prison sentence. According to local reports on Tuesday, the Nobel laureate was pardoned in 5 of the 19 cases that the military leadership had brought against her. It comes 1 week after the 78-year-old was moved from prison to house arrest. The former leader has been detained since February 2021, following a coup that began after she won a 2nd term in office by a large margin. The pardon was part of an amnesty given to over 7,000 prisoners to mark Buddhist Lent. It also included a partial pardon for former President Win Myint. And finally, NASA on Tuesday said that it has found a heartbeat signal from the Voyager 2 probe. Direct communication with the spacecraft was lost last month after a wrong command caused Voyager 2 to point its antenna 2 degrees away from Earth. This led to messages from both sides missing each other. But by finding the probe's carrier signal, NASA was able to confirm that Voyager 2 is still broadcasting. It's hoped that a scheduled reset of the probe's systems in mid-October will allow communication to be re-established. Launched in 1977, the probe is designed to study the edge of our solar system. It's currently around 20 billion kilometers from Earth. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Baking heat continues to engulf much of Korea and shows no signs of slowing down. It's also the peak of the summer vacation season, with major expressways packed with vacationers wishing to escape from the sizzling heat. And there is a chance of passing rain in inland areas during the day. Expect to see 5 to 60 millimeters of sudden rain. When it starts to rain, it could pour down, so those near the water need to take the rain into account. The capital area is under burning sunshine with strong UV rays and feels like temperatures to hover around 35 degrees Celsius in most parts of the country. Now, it looks like intense heat will continue through next week, so take care and don't forget to drink plenty of water. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Now the country is on alert for Typhoon Kanun, which is proving to be highly unpredictable as seen in the previous report. The Korean Meteorological Administration has changed its projections for the typhoon's path dramatically, and the path is still unclear due to varying forecasts by different countries. Experts say predicting weather relies heavily on data collected through the past century. Yet climate change is making today's weather unprecedented and extreme, not seen in the past 100 years, which is making it hard to predict even for supercomputers. And it is a challenge that could become more common in the future. This is where we end today's newscast. Thanks for watching.